I'm scrambling today trying to get all packed, do all sorts of stuff. So I got that forward tripping thing. I think you all know that. It's a human habit. So there are tools at hand, right? There's it's amazing capacity that we have. Well, we can project into the future probably better than any other organism on the planet, but who knows for sure. But we can also go to the past. So we're moving in time, and it's the body that mastered the present. Doesn't need to get an anchor. It is the anchor. And then there's things you can do to get the mind to connect, but you're waiting for the mind to get there. Maybe you had too much coffee this morning. Maybe you've got, you know, you already done a million, 4 or 5 things before the class, 10 things. And all of a sudden, so don't think about the present as a perpetual goal. In my opinion, the present is an important energy to be able to have, to know how to get there. More importantly, it's really important to be able to slow down time, in my opinion. This is a really big part of a listening skill. You've got to slow down time if you're going to be a good listener. And by the way, nobody's a good listener, in my opinion, without being patronizing if they're listening more from their head, from their brain. Having the intention to be a good listener is not being a good listener, right? You have to be calm and present. And you also have to see beauty in what the person is saying, see interest, help them see things they don't see, reflect back at them. It's also what friends do and good yoga teachers. So now make sure you're keeping it a little bit quieter on the inside of your mouth. So let there be more space. One way is that I can do that pretty well as I lips together, teeth slightly apart. Of course, that introduces sensitivity. But if I feel my mouth as a cave, let it be deep. Not being afraid of its depth. So from the emptiness on the inside of your mouth, soften the around the temples and the skin on the forehead. So the base of the brain near the eyebrows descends. Meet it with a lifting chest. But in order for the lifting chest to be less violent, we're talking about subtle violence, find your sitting bones, find your feet, or wherever you're touching your base, and rise up. But the whole time, the base of the brain is descending, meeting the spark of life coming through your spine. And here, there's a balance between the spark of life and the descending. Sometimes I like to think of the brain descending in humility. One time I had my yoga teacher say that there's a more of a orangish, fiery energy coming up through the spine and a cooling blue energy descending from the brain. Do whatever works, but make it a zero-sum game so you can be connected to the space around you. Come into balance. So the front of your chest is more with effort coming from the earth. The humility drops, but you're trying to sense with your skin the space behind you. Don't let it just be a thought. Let in. Balance. One of the ways that I can do sometimes to help me feel the back body is I drop a silk curtain from the base of the neck down to the sacrum. But it's got to be silk. That's another stolen instruction from my yoga teacher. But as you're doing all this, how's your jaw? How's the inside of your mouth? How's the cave? The spine migrating forward keeps the life. The humility drops. Bring your hands into prayer if you can, or become more aware of symmetry if possible. Equal from side to side. You're gathering up more of you. Now there's more body presence because you're trying to equalize things. But you want to make sure that there's the energy in your hands from connecting to the heel of your hands, opening the palms and going up through each finger, is mirroring the rise in the sternum. For me, the drop of the chin helps me feel the skin on my palms. Everything's subtle. Everything's open. It's waiting for you to realize. Let go of your day. Be everywhere now, but gracefully, gently, but stay grounded in your body. It's the signpost. Good, and then release. Lift your sternum up towards your chin and your chin down over your sternum. Now the intersection between the sternum lifting and the chin dropping is more like the fire hitting the blue, right? It's more overt and more sensed. Good. And then raise your head up with closed eyes. Open your eyes. So I was watching you all while we were doing that centering, right? And Michael's freaking having a party there with lots of laughter. I have no idea. All I can say is that we all wish we were having whatever was happening in Michael's space, right? And then I'm seeing a couple other people yawn a little bit, and a couple other people wipe their eyes. Either they're sleepy or they're already emotional because the day's full. All these things I don't get to know, right? But that's part of it. Everyone in the group comes in with something different. So one of the things I want to talk about or practice today is what do you do and how do you integrate with the spaces that you don't get to feel as well, right? So I mean, for me, for sure, I'm more armored on one side of my spine than the other. So in my case, right, it's my right side, and it's because of my scoliosis. So like if you were to even like put your hands on my back, there'd be one side more developed than the other. So one has been being the rock from which I pivot off my movement, right? So, but everyone's got a different story. So that has all sorts of consequences. I don't breathe as well through my left nostril, through my left lung. There are a whole bunch of things that happen that I need not to judge myself for, right? I need not to go, oh, dang, I need to be perfect, right? It's more, and there are things to work on. It doesn't mean that, oh, I'm perfect the way I am. You're not perfect the way you are, just so you know. It's okay. It's cool, right? It's shared by every human on the planet, right? We're not perfect. But what do you do? I always tilt my head. So there are all these things. That's scoliosis again. There are all these things. So what about this space right here? How does this space, because I tilt my head all the time. So I want you to be, I'm talking about my body, but I want you thinking about your own body, right? So what is it that I gain by doing this? Why do gravity wise, whatever wise, right? Sensation wise, what grounding do I gain by tilting my head? What happens when I straighten my head? What do I gain? And instead of thinking, oh, I should always be this way, maybe I need to live in both spaces, right? I need both spaces. All right. So again, and so where's the spaces in your body? I know for a fact that there's one hip that you're sitting on that's duller than the other, just so you know, right? There are vertebrae in your back that's duller than the other, right? It's not your fault, but how do you learn from them? What do you do? How do you practice symmetry in a body that's asymmetrical? Do you imagine yourself perfectly symmetrical? I hope the very thought of that makes you want to barf in your mouth. Don't ever imagine yourself perfect. It's dumb. How do you take what you are and make it integrate? Make it be a teacher. All right. I'd like to ask you all for your thoughts on how to do that, but I'm not gonna, because Michael's having a party and we're not invited, right? That's all right. I can live with him having his own fun over there. All right, let's move around a little bit. Right, getting the energy. Why would you create space? Why would, you think, oh, I better, when you're a jogger or whatever, we're a jogger, you better stretch out before you start running, because if you don't, you'll snap a hamstring. What a terrible story that is, right? You're getting old, something will rip and tear if you don't do it. Maybe you're trying to create the sensation that allows for a deeper realization of symmetry, right? What does it mean to feel and fill the whole vessel, right? Someone back, woman, I'm not really quite doing yoga here yet. I'm just kind of like going, wait, if I just try to make my space symmetrical from a narrow sense of sensation, I'm not really symmetrical in every direction. If I don't reconcile what happened this morning and how the dog ate my homework, right? Or what I have to do today to get ready to jump on the plane in the morning early, then I'm not symmetrical. I'm not actually balanced in the space I'm in, right? So don't just, what's great about asana is you don't have to figure out everything, but through your body, I'm taking my legs wide because I'm just opening up. From my body, I'm working on my body to create a sense of equanimity in all the time planes, in all the ways I'm trying to let not just my muscular strength, but my sense of lightness become more apparent within the vessel that I have, right? You don't change prana when you like loosen up your muscles. So I'm just leaning over one direction. You don't change prana. You change whether you can sense it, how you sense it, how it travels. I'm coming forward. I'm still moving around. I'm having fun. I think I'm having fun. How would I know I'm having fun? I have no idea. Maybe that's the mind's problem, right? The mind doesn't know crap, right? It just doesn't know stuff yet. And now I'm adding another layer. I'm going, now I'm not just moving. Now I'm watching changes in gravity. So I'm coming forward and I can't feel my feet on the floor, not directly. How do I sense how the change of gravity affects my awareness of the weight change on my feet? Well, I'm gonna better have to sense the empty space that's essential to symmetry, to fullness, right? I'm trying to figure out how. So now when I take one arm wide, can I feel my opposite leg? So I'm trying to get this sense that at first you can call it imagination if you want, but don't limit it at imagination. When I actually get more open, remember, this is like the equivalent of, wait, I think I'll put my hand through my own soup, right? I'm opening, I'm changing sensation. I'm going across my own soup, right? So you know what happens? And then I'm bringing my legs back together finally. When my mind gets too active, when it gets too caught up in what I'm trying to do, I tend to go back to the spaces I cover up. Like when I was just doing that, I tilted my head back because my brain got really active. So the brain figures out a way of repetitive knowing, even if it's negative knowing, the brain figures out how to create a platform for my mind to be active. And typically, it's what creates the asymmetry in your inward awareness. So, you know, when a muscle gets sore, it's often because it's overworking, right? Or the spot you can't feel is so tight that the other side is sore. It can go either way. So I'm moving back and forth again, right? And I'm just like, I'm pushing on each femur bone. I'm making sure as I go back over my chair, again, I'm still trying to stretch the taffy of my inner dimension to fill my vessel so my sense of symmetry can improve, right? Because I need to feel it from multi-directional. And what I've introduced in this class is that the multi-directional has to be what's in the past and in the future, right? So now I'm pushing on my femur bones, right? And I'm grounding and I'm opening. So I'm making sure now I'm trying to balance my symmetry between a sensation of grounding in earth and a sensation of openness towards the sky. This is part of symmetry, right? So you go, and I'm making sure I'm having all the spaces leaning over, pushing on my femur bone. So I'm trying to now think about symmetry as including earth and sky. I push down on my femur bone, I lift my chest. So Beth and I were talking late last week, and I've been thinking about it. I often tell the story of being around Mary Dunn and how she did a 45-minute dog pose. Well, Bethany, of course, outdoing me as she always does, she reads this thing about the Guinness Book of World Records or something for the longest plank pose ever held. Right? The longest plank pose ever held. And it's something like by like a 60 to 70-year-old man, basically, over 8 hours, like 8 hours and 24 minutes, he hung out in plank. Do you think he's holding himself up with his arms to hold it that long? There's not a chance. He's symmetrical with all the space he's in. He's balanced between what's below him in plank, what's above him in plank, the way that the energy and strain is going through his arms and how his bones insert into his joints are somehow floating, right? Not perfectly, but 8 hours, pretty freaking perfect. Where does a sensation like that? Is he doing it all with his breath? Oh, I don't think so. Because too much, I'll bet you his breathing had to end up becoming relatively shallow. Because if there's another dog on the room, I like that. Mark, he's sitting there watching you at attention, right? But he can't be emphasizing his breath too much because each breath would make him asymmetrical if he was too aware of it. So what is this old guy doing? Dang, I don't know. So let's sit up straight and tall again. So how do I become symmetrical with the space in front of me and the space behind me? So I'm going to sit up straight and tall. One way not to do it is to slump your shoulders, right? That wouldn't be symmetrical. Can you tell the dead zones when you have can you feel where you deaden in your body when your shoulders are dropped? Kind of makes sense, right? Well, then we sit at our computer and we hunch our shoulders and certain muscles tend to overuse, right? Because you can feel especially when you're moving your fingers a lot on your computer. Can you just feel it with your shoulders dropped? Can you tell how it would go right to your trapezius if your hands are directly in front of you, is because you're not congruent with what's happening, right? But it's a very functional space to work in, right? So now I want to make sure my shoulder blades stay connected in order for me to sense the space behind me. I actually have to bring my spine into my body. My spine has to go into my body in order to open to the space behind my body. Right? I can put slam my shoulders. I hope are you following me? Will you nod if I'm making sense to you? Can you feel the difference? Right? Like when I slump, although I push and project into that space, I don't feel it as much because I'm deadened. If I bring alert stillness to my kidneys, to my mid back, and I balance on my sitting bones, suddenly something else happens. And my inhalation is smart. So don't you wish, like right now I'm having more screen envy right now. I'm having screen envy. I have to warn you about my screen envy. All right now, Lita is putting her hand on the Jennifer's forehead to calm her frontal cortex. I kind of wish that someone would let me practice sometime with someone gently holding my forehead together, right? Well, Singer tries that. He tries to get people to put ace bandages on their head sometimes, especially in inversions, right? So let's everyone like take a chapter of like, dang, got all these words coming at me. But what's more important is that I keep my frontal cortex in my body, in my body. So I'm going to calm my frontal cortex. And then I'm going to do something radical. I'm going to lift my sternum. So I'm starting to balance the calm with the action. So like when you put your hand in your frontal cortex, which I'm still having envy, right? Envy is a strong word. Part of that, when that happens, I kind of want to slump into the backside of my spine. So there's something about that position of slumping that allows you to get a more kind of calming energy. But now I want to keep that and lift my sternum. Right? And then release. I'm going to take my hand off my forehead. Right? I'm going to go through the process again. Trying to quit my mail program because it keeps coming in on me with loud beeps. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's bugging me, right? So I'm calming, but then I'm sparking, right? Because I want the calming energy to be symmetrical with the sparking energy. Could call that balance. You could call it a whole bunch of things, right? Good, and then release. All right. So now dog pose, whatever your version is, right? So it's easy to think about symmetrical as a physical thing, and that's a fine way to use asana, right? So your hands are either on the table in front of you, right? Or on your, like this. Okay. And you could go, okay, I'm gonna scratch the idea of symmetry about symmetrical from side to side. So either equal pressure on each forearm on each thigh or by each knee, or on the top of each knee, or on each table, right? Then I'm going to do it from the table. Then as I go to drop my shoulder blades, right? It's not quite drop. It's more like spread. If you spread between the shoulder blades, they actually have to drop a little bit, right? But once I do that, I don't know about you, but I tend to take, when my hands are on the table, I tend to take more weight on the pinky side of my hand, right? When I drop my shoulder blades, the weight shifts on my palms. It's not, the same thing happens. So like when I do it with my hands on my knees like this, and my palms are open, my wrists are on my knees, right? When I spread between my shoulder blades and drop them, one pressure goes in harder than the other. What a surprise. It's the side that I hunker down on that goes in harder, right? So I'm starting to learn. So I'll do it from here now. I'm starting to learn, right, when I'm doing it this way, that when I spread between my shoulder blades and I try to stay, and now already I'm heavier on one sitting bones, all of a sudden it's all the asymmetry is coming at me, right? Right, so one sitting bone's going down, but when I drop my shoulder blades, I have to now sit there and be a yogi now and realize that as I drop and spread my shoulder blades, not drop them. As I spread my shoulder blades, and the tendency is for this arm on me to hit my knee in harder, then I have to try to spread my shoulder blades and not do that. Bring more awareness to my opposite wrist on my knee. See if there's a reflection of that asymmetry in my sitting bones and between my feet. Get it to whatever degree of equanimity you can, and then lift your sternum. So the energy coming from lifting the sternum is filling the vessel equally, because prana follows consciousness more than it follows breath. Right? So I'm trying to put, not my mind is not making the signposts. My mind goes to the spots. I hang in the spots. And then I lift my sternum. And then I try to direct my breath to inside the tent, the signposts of the tent pegs of the body. So I'm trying to make sure my breath feeds symmetry. Right? So I maximize its potential. Good, and then release. So when I was first starting to teach adaptive yoga, not first, but I made this mistake for about 5 years, because everyone's telling me I should teach breath, and there's some truth to that, right? But the problem is that a couple of times I teach more direct pranayama or breathing, I'd get reports back from my students, especially students with cerebral palsy, by the way. Michael, right? That their nervous system would get so charged they wouldn't breathe, they wouldn't sleep for a long time. They'd have trouble sleeping. Chris Becker used to sometimes have to stay up for like 24 hours, right? Because the energy that was coming through the breath was actually feeding his asymmetry, right? And his nervous system was getting charged, but getting charged in a twisted position, right? So it became clear to me that I had to try to have Chris figure out how to be symmetrical in his body, even though physically his musculoskeletal system was never going to allow him to be symmetrical in his body. Not going to happen with the way his contractures were. Somehow I had to teach him to be symmetrical, to have the sensation of symmetry without him being physically symmetrical, so his breath could actually fill the vessel equally. Can you imagine? He's been one of my most important students. It's made me explore asymmetry. And then it's like, I think it's about Chris, and it's actually about me. I got the same problems, different scope. Come back to dog pose. So yeah, I could take you through the superficial adjustments. Feel your hands equally on the table or on your thighs. Try to get it so your palms are open. Try to feel the anchor that I would go to right away would be each sitting bone. For me, it's harder to go to each foot. So it might be better for you to go from equalized hands to equalized feet to equalized sitting bones. I don't think so, but you'd have to know on your own practice, right? So I'm getting signposts, but I just don't want to be aware, like think about like I have to do something. And so if I sit there and go, my mind goes there and I'm waiting for the next instruction, then I'm in the future, right? I'm not just being there to be, it's because we're trying to be symmetrical in past and present, right? So I need to get to the places in my body and be patient, because patience allows the empty space to come alive if the mind doesn't get bored. So I'm feeling my hands, I'm feeling my sitting bones, I'm feeling my feet, and I want to enhance the connection between those 6 points. So I'm gonna straighten my arms and spread between my shoulder blades to make the conduit between my hands and my sitting bones more clear. So I'm starting to use the asana to create symmetry. And then it's harder for me, but probably less so for some of you, to go from my sitting bones. And can you see why I want you to go to your inner heels? Because it's easier to make the pranic connection on the inner heels. So now I'm getting all those signposts. Oh, it's going to help if I spread across my sacrum. You can see where my instructions come from? All of a sudden, it's like, and when I spread across my sacrum, my inner groin ignites to my inner knee and down to my inner heel. So now, all of a sudden, now I need to feel the lightness of the warm up and stretching from the beginning of class. I need to go to the past and remember lightness. Then I soften the inside of the mouth, let my mouth be a cave, lift my sternum, activate the energy. Then I'm going to add awareness of my breath into a full vessel. Good. And then release all that for like a 10-second hold. What the hell? What kind of monkey business is this? I don't know. Up, down, all around. So now I'm going to get some life energy by twisting a little bit. What if twisting changed the color of your energy? Wasn't just about how far you twisted. I don't want to teach this very much. Good, and then release. Going with the other arm. Around. Right? Marichiasana 3. Kind of. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, revolve. Doesn't matter the different poses. Good, and then release. So now I'm going to come forward. So I'm having this inside, crazy, weirdly committed yoga teachers or students like me, like watch things like BK Sangar teaching Marichiasana 3. I was watching it last night and I'm still stuck on a certain instruction that I'm trying to bring sense to. So I'm coming forward. I'm about to give it to you. And by the way, I don't even know how to teach it yet. So I'm doing a cardinal no-no, right? This is what you don't do so I'm hoping you all can share the misery with me, right? I kind of am getting it, right? I think I do actually, if I'm being honest. I know there's more for me to get, but right now I'm leaning forward on my forearms, right? I'm grounding. We're gonna go towards upward facing dog, right? So we're gonna come back to this pose in a little bit. So I'm hitting down through my sitting bones. I'm broadening between my shoulders. I'm broadening across my sacrum. I'm lifting out of my collarbones. I'm still, when I get so active on the front side of my body, I forget to let in the back side of behind me because I'm being so muscular. Okay, so I gotta pause for a second. Then I'm gonna I'm gonna inhale, and on an exhalation, I'm gonna start to lift my chest, extend where it's easier at first from the sternum to the front side of the chin. but I'm going to try to balance that with dropping the skin from the base of my neck down to between my shoulder blades. Notice I said the skin there, right? In order to do that, I have to broaden between the shoulder blades, broaden across the sacrum, and feel my inner heels. Wait. Take a couple of breaths, make space, and on the exhalation, as the empty space then deflates, don't lose the sense of empty space. Good, and then release. So here's the freaking instruction, right? That I can't make sense of, but I kind of can, right? But I know I'm just on the edge of getting it. So, and he's teaching this twist, saying a lot of things, mind-blowing things that make me want to go to sleep, right? So I'm moving back and forth because don't just hang on the words, right? He says, especially with the side body, but Srishan Bharad Bhajasan and then Richasana 3. He says, stretch the skin before you stretch the flesh. What? What the hell? What the hell's going on here? You know what I can do? So in other words, he's saying that's a mistake, but you and I know how to stretch the flesh. We do it all the time, right? We forget to add the skin. Remember, the dude says all intelligence enters the poses through the skin. So now I'm already pissed off, right? Because he's basically implicitly pointing out to me that my poses are dumb. And unfortunately, he's not wrong. I hate that. There's always more, right? And I'm not going to be perfect. That's okay. So inhale up. So why I try to make you slow down, and I've been teaching you more from the flesh in a twist when I've tried to auger down towards the earth, right? I'm taking there behind me. So now it's easy to want to turn the upper body here, right? Like that, and then when you do that, the muscles start to fire. When you go too quickly and turn the upper body too fast, right? Okay, and then come on back to center for a second. That quick movement that happens not patiently, let's call that the flesh. Okay. So again, I'm just trying to like make sense of what he might be teaching because he's not lying to me. Right. So now this is why I try to pause you here. Typically, I teach the augering down. I've been doing that lately in the twist. Right. But don't auger down from the flesh. Stay patient enough to find the sensation of symmetry that we've been working on this whole class. Don't push it down and grind. Let it be lighter. And when from the lighter energy, try to feel the outline of your pose, where your skin would be, right? So you're pausing enough to not have your mind rush the pose. Now inhale and keep the pausing energy and then start to pull on your knee and turn. Make it more flush. Right? So as I drop, so I'm twisting to the left, as I drop my left shoulder blade some or bring it into the body and pull slightly with my left inner shoulder blade, I want to do that only so far as I feel the lightness. Now inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. Good, and then release. Is anybody having your default mode go to squeezing the flesh? As soon as I start getting into it, I default to squeezing the flesh. Huh. No wonder my right side is tired. Because when I squeeze the flesh, I go to the overworked part. and I lose symmetry. I feel like I'm out of my own private Idaho here, just so you know, but I don't really care. Inhale up, trying to make space, going over to the side, right? Getting balanced, because if I'm not balanced, I'm already collapsed, right? So I'm finding the right hand placement, this direction. It's different on each side for me because of my asymmetry. But now I want to make sure that I don't turn yet, because I'll go to the flush too quick. So I'm trying to make sure I'm staying in my own midline, which means even though I'm twisted, I'm making sure I catch the inner edge of my right shoulder blade to stay connected and symmetrical with my left shoulder blade, right? And then I'm making sure I'm staying connected to my left sitting bone and my left heel, because I've already, as soon as my mind follows the drama, I've already given up my sense of symmetry, right? So now I'm sitting here, and before I'm starting to twist too much, before my mind actively engages my flesh, I have to pause, feel symmetry, remember symmetry, inhale, make space, and exhale, move from the pause and then the grip of the muscle. Now, right away, my mind forgets my back, my left hip, my left foot, because I'm following too much where the drama is. Good. And then come on back to center. I have to be my own yogi. All right. I suspect that I've gone a little too deep in this. As people drop off, what's my first clue? Right? I think I might have gone too far. Oh, well. I hate to tell you, I don't care that much. Right? So this idea of a difference, I do care. Otherwise, I wouldn't bring it up. Right? Going back and forth again. So this idea. So here's a weird question for you. You have to say A or B. It's A or B. Would you say that skin awareness is more connected to the sun or the moon? Raise your head if you think there's no right answer here. Raise your head if you think it's the sun. Anyone want to guess the moon? Bethany, you are so wrong. Right? But I don't know. Who knows for sure? Which one would the skin be more earthy or more airy? Who thinks it's earthy? The skin now. Interesting. Who thinks the skin awareness is more airy? Tough, weird questions, right? But part of the idea is that the yogis are introducing not as literal things, literal elements, but ways to make qualitative distinctions between sensations, right? So as long as you acknowledge that they're different, that's all you need to get, right? And when you try to describe how they're different, how the sensations are different. So why would sensation of proprioception, so my hands are in prayer again. I have to end here pretty soon. So what happens when I feel the connection between my hands? You put them on your thighs, especially if you can feel your thighs. But I want to balance that awareness with the sensation of the air on the back of my hands. When I balance the front and the back, the front and the back, right? The top of my foot and the bottom of my foot, what starts to happen? When I don't just stare at my hands, but I let the space behind my eyes are required in order for me to not just feel the connection between my palms, but the space behind my palms. That's how, when I've let this sensation happen, I can feel this sensation on my body, on the side of my head, right? And when I balance the two, when you balance the two, the connection to the earth and the sense of the empty space, can you feel that your poses align? They kind of show you what they need to be. Make sure it includes both feet, both sitting bones, space between the shoulder blades. Use it to be in the space that surrounds you. Equanimity from inside to out is not a place to live. It's a place to access. And it has only limited to do with your physical symmetry. It's a realization. Breathe. Good. And then release. We're about to do Shavasana. I'm always amazed at how intuitive our language is that we take for granted. Don't you think it's amazingly cool and interesting that we say, oh, I can feel it all, or I'm nothing but skin and bones? That's one of the, we don't usually say, oh, I'm just nothing but muscles and skin. Okay, he's down to the skin and bones. Or like we actually emphasize those two things more than I'm down to flesh and bones. We say that sometimes, but skin and bones is something that pops up in our language. I think it's really curious. So now with your symmetry that hopefully you feel some kind of connection to, you have to figure out how to let your chair hold it all up. So how you have your hands is your choice. Right now, I'm lightly folding my fingers and touching my thumb tips together, right? And I'm leaning back a little bit. Lips together, teeth slightly apart. Oh dear, I have to balance my head over my neck. When I balance my head over my neck, I can connect my inner ears better. And then come in the skin on the forehead and the desire to soften the inside of my mouth. All of a sudden, all of it appears. There's a home here. It's just out of tangible reach. But so is the song before it became vibration and entered your body, right? It's the same. Feel your breath. Thank your body. Start to bring yourself back, slightly deeper inhalation, slightly longer exhalation. You get to choose the light. So when you're ready, open your eyes. Oh, I need a respite. I'm going to close them again. This next time I open them, I'm going to lift my sternum and open my eyes, anger on my sitting bones, and feel symmetry. I'm going to try to let the light into my symmetry. So when I was doing that shavasana with you all, I had this like almost startling sensation of that. I had no idea where the tongue was in the inside of my mouth. I got my jaw and the mouth really like, and it was like, oh my God. As far as I know, I don't have a tongue right now. Like I have no idea where it is in my mouth, which was this. And at first I was kind of startled, like, that's weird, right? And then I was like, wait. And then I realized when I don't know where my tongue is in my mouth, that means the base of my tongue is soft. That means my inner ear is soft. There's a whole bunch of things that's actually a reflection of truly softening the organs of perception. But what happens to the mind when all of a sudden it becomes aware of something that you didn't know was happening? Has you ever had that happen where all of a sudden you look at your knee or something or your leg and go, oh my God, is that twisted? What's wrong here? And you have that startle when you're actually just noticing a nuance of what already was. Does anyone have this? Is that just me? Does anyone have this happen? Right, where you go like, what the hell? So in those moments, and it happens to me in Shavasana sometimes where I go too deeply, too fast, it kind of startles my mind, right? And it almost hits a place of fear. One of the things I've been thinking about these last few days is that when something that happens in your yoga practice or in your inward perception, when you truly realize how asymmetrically you're living, but how symmetry is there as a sensation, regardless of it's physically true. When you see that potential, it can almost be overwhelming, right? Or that, or that you're not just in the present, but you're balancing between the future and the past. And when that becomes a thought, it can get startling, right? That's a really good time to look up. So when the mind starts to become aware of the everything, of everything, right? That's a good time to not go, oh no, because the mind is going to drive that energy down like into worry. That's what I'm finding. And it's like, wait, no, actually, that was always true. And that can be true, even though I got there from going to where it was super quiet. That quiet place can also be life affirming, right? I'm finding the need, and I think human history is full of human consciousness always needing to look up as it's grappled with the suffering of the mind, right? Like, hence religions and all sorts of stuff that tend to locate stuff skyward, freedom as open space, as no constraints. So the mind needs to look up too. So when you come back out of Shavasana, be grateful you can look up. Be symmetrical. I tend to get lost in the intensity of what's happening. I need to look up more. All right, everybody, hands together. Lost a lot of people as I bantered on so long, but it's good. Namaste. Spirit in me bows the spirit in you. I will